By the time we get out of quarantine, our tans will have faded and we won't be able to spend any time with like a real person in close proximity for them to appreciate them.
Hi everybody! Linda's not with us right now, but she sort of is.
Say hi to everybody, Linda.
We're day 4 of mandatory self-isolation.
Full-on quarantine, not just self-isolation. We are mandated to stay in our tiny apartment for 14 days, no contact with the outside, not even allowed to go for a walk.
I'm okay with that. It's nothing really new out of my schedule.
When we first arrived back here, we got an awful lot of support, and we were really grateful to everyone who came by to shout hello through our window, and the deliveries that we got, those were fantastic.
Oh my God, Dennis!
Hi.
It's like Christmas in April! What do we got in there today?
Thanks to Tamara and Gordon and my dad and Cameo.
Melanie, Chris, Joey, the amount of people that it was actually super awesome being jet lagged. Not too jet lagged, but still, just with all the craziness. Our second day back, receiving all the deliveries as people came up to our front window.
We realized that no one's gonna let us starve or go without anything. We're very impressed with our network and grateful for them. Contrasted by our crazy neighbor who has already peeped out of his door while we were receiving a delivery to scream that if he sees the door open again, he will call the cops.
Our neighbor actually went batshit crazy because our door was open while we got a delivery, while we were bringing a delivery in. Not even being close to anybody, just getting a delivery.
In his defense, he's a bit socially maladjusted. Moving on.
Moving on.
What got us here? How did we even get here? Last update was in Bali saying we are stuck here and we don't know how to get back. The information was constantly changing. It was a very fluid situation, updates all the time. And I think the moment it got real for us, we were holding out to get our flights changed and bookings moved around and everything, and thinking, okay, things are still moving in an orderly fashion. Let's just stick with our guns and move forward with our airline. But when Taipei closed down to transfers is when it got real, and we realized that the pathways home were closing. And because the customer service was not so hot, we just decided, you know what, we need to just exercise our ability to just buy new tickets and go.
But it wasn't that smooth actually. Like our flights with China Air had been changed at least 7 or 8 times. It was a constant. It went from the 11th to the 10th to the 5th to the 6th to the 9th. And then the last time it got changed, it was actually for the 11th. All right, Trevor. Oh, touching my eyes, people, touching my eyes. Trevor just got the email from China Air, and once again, our flights have been canceled. Rescheduled for April 11th. So, gonna get this ride. I don't know. So, what do you think about the flights being canceled yet again, Trevor?
Unsurprising. Given the state of things, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens again. Or if Bali becomes a hot spot, that we could be refused entry elsewhere. The path might be open, but it might be closed to us, coming from a place that seems woefully unprepared for what's coming.
Now this time we were talking, it was March 24th or 24th. So we're still in a mindset of like, well, we have these paid tickets. These tickets cost us money, and unless China Air cancels our flights, then we not only lose that. I'm sorry, we didn't realize we know things are crazy. Keep that in mind, humans. But at the same token, we have these paid tickets. and they're saying they're going to bring us home. So why would we still weren't terrified enough to say, fuck those tickets, let's go spend some more money. Everything was calm enough at the time being that we didn't feel, at the time in Bali, we did not feel any fear, like all the messages that were coming in from home and the news, and we know how horrible it was out there in the world. But in our isolated little world in Bali, Ubud at the time, it was like, oh, but it's not here yet, and it sounds like it's safer to be here right now. Like if we get in a, it sounds like if we get in an airport and if we get in a sardine can, we felt like our chances of getting sick were going to be magnified. So it was a long process in our heads of like every single hour, like hearing something new, like, oh, should we move? Our parents and friends are saying, get home now. We are signed up with the embassy. So we got the embassy of Indonesia sending us updates 4 times a day. Amazing. I highly recommend that, you know.
Whenever you're traveling, pro tip, register yourself with the Registry of Canadians Abroad, and they will keep you very informed as to a lot of information on the ground. I appreciate what they've done, but I also wish they'd been a bit more explicit. They were saying things like, we implore you to make an educated decision about coming home, without really spelling out what the lockdowns were going to look like, to what extent. Only in sort of some vague terms, buried in paragraphs would they say things like, we believe that only 2% of cases in Indonesia are being reported, which is then to say that they have no idea what's going on and it's going to explode there. Because to be honest, on the ground, it felt like there wasn't really anything. There was maybe a sense of, you know, some kind of something impending, but like they were still acting like nothing was happening. So, you know, we really relied on outside information. And when we looked into what the expat community was doing in Bali, that was also another kind of trigger point for us, where we were reading that a lot of people were saying, you know, with heavy hearts, we are leaving Bali. We don't want to go, but we realize that when things do break out here, they will be very busy taking care of their own, and we really hope, you know, pray for the best for the Balinese, but we need to go home. And when we read that, we thought there's definitely a temperature check that we need to pay attention to, and it was time to just suck it up and buy new tickets.
But again, we didn't suck it up and buy new tickets until it was, again, all this information's coming in, but it still felt all safe in Ubud Bali until the day of silence. Nyepi Day. So, of course, Marina does not like to be caged, panicked in the morning. I was very distressed about having to be confined into our small villa. We did have the whole villa to ourselves at this time. But what I'm trying to say, okay, right, fair enough, but whatever. I didn't like it in the morning, but then by mid-afternoon, we realized, holy shit, we got this villa to ourselves, we get the pool to ourselves. We should explain what happens Nyepi Day. You can't leave the property, you're supposed to keep all your electricity off, and the government actually shuts down internet. So you have no access to internet. So that's the part that made me like, oh my God, what if something happens and I can't be on the internet for 24 hours? But by mid-morning, I was like, wow, this is actually quite peaceful. And we spent the whole day lounging, blissfully not even aware of what was happening around us. It's bintang time. Kenzie, open it.
Ow! Damn it!
Yeah, you did.
Not graceful, but successful.
Yes. It was
very zen.
It was very zen, and it was a real nice, what was it, like what do you call that, a detox of social media. And I actually didn't realize how much stress that you know, constantly getting updates and watching the news and Twitter and friends email, how much it was making me go inside. So that whole 24 hours became a bit of zen, and we couldn't wait for 6 o'clock the next morning for the internet to come back on. The internet came back on, and all right, it's still happening. It's worse.
More updates were waiting for us. Things had gotten worse. You know, since an hour-by-hour thing, 24 hours had passed. And they'd also instituted a second day of silence. So
this is where I started to get really like, whoa. All of us, actually.
We got a taste of what a lockdown in Bali would feel like, in the sense that nothing was open, There was no real resources, and we were really at the mercy of the homestay that we were staying at, and they weren't able to provide anything for us other than a bowl of ichiban in the evening. Now, thankfully, we'd done a little bit of an overshop the day before and had food still to provide for ourselves, but other than just a bowl of noodles in the evening, that's all they were able to provide us with.
Well, you got to keep in mind, no, we still got the only thing they served you, it came with the homestay, was a breakfast. So we got a nice traditional breakfast. But as for after that, we were like, well, we said to the lady, like, oh my God, what are we going to have for lunch and dinner for another 24 hours? And she's like, well, we can offer a bowl of ichiban soup. And of course, Marina, who likes her food and gets a lot of comfort from food, I was starting to get really like squirrely, and we're like, that was when we were like, holy shit, like if this is actually how it's gonna be, I think we need to, of course we start talking about all the things that could possibly go wrong, which is like, wow, we're at the mercy of this lady who's luckily going to feed us a bowl of Ichiban soup. Thanks to Trevor's mom, we were FaceTiming her and she said, can't you ask him to put an egg on it? And I said, that's brilliant. So we did ask, and thanks to Shirley, we got an egg on our Ichiban soup. It wasn't that bad. We had an avocado still.
We had a gigantic avocado to go with it, so it actually was pretty tasty, but the reality was, you know, if we hadn't prepared it all for something, we would have literally just had a bowl of noodles for the rest of the day.
So it's not that we were starving. So I'm not trying to make it so important that like, oh, we had a little tiny bit of food, and you know, some people don't have food.
It was just a taste of the lockdown.
And that once we ran out of food, it's like, holy shit, we're not gonna get food. And so all these thoughts and scenarios started going through our head, and that's when we all collectively decided, oh my God, we really need to get some tickets out of here. You know, fuck Air China. They're not gonna, again, they were still saying that our flights were go for the 11th. We're like, we have to bite the bullet, let go of that money. What's more important, getting home safely or riding this out? And emotionally, I was personally, I couldn't do it anymore. I gotta get teary-eyed about it right now. But
so we laid it out for ourselves and decided, okay, before the pathways continue to close, we need to just book our tickets, and we booked tickets for the next day, flying to Jakarta.
That was a long process. It was like a zigzagging, overlaying map for you to get it.
Part of the lesson that we had from booking our flights there and having a problem booking flights back, or at least getting some proper customer support, is that we'd gone through a third-party booking system. Professional tip, don't use third-party booking systems.
Don't do it.
You can use airfare scrapers like cheapflights.ca to find the cheap airlines and cheap flights, and then go directly to those airlines and book those. It's more time consuming, but then your relationship is with the airline, not with some information scraping third-party booking system that kind of is holding you hostage. So I had to go through all the flights and figure out which ones we were going to take, and then do the bookings separately, which, you know, of course you have to enter all your information, everybody's birthday and passport numbers, and you have to double check everything, because when you go to the desk, they can't change anything. So if your middle name is misspelled, they could refuse you entry.
Yeah, Linda's over there on FaceTime right now thanking Trevor. We all thanked him immensely. Thank you, Master.
But the thing was, we didn't know whether or not we were going to be able to get back, because things were closing so quickly. My main fear was, even if we were booking tickets for the next day, we were looking at the possibility of Indonesia going into lockdown and being trapped in Jakarta, or Japan going into lockdown and being trapped in Tokyo. I would have preferred to be locked down in Jakarta just for monetary reasons. If we'd gotten locked down in Tokyo, it would be crazy expensive. So that night I actually didn't sleep super well, just worrying about, given the fluid situation, will we have a path home?
But here's the thing though, now after our 2 days in isolation, one was that peaceful holiday, the second was like, terrifying extra day of what it could be like in the near future, to the day 3 when we actually left the grounds, and to see everybody well, the stores that had already been shut down for that one day, that was not out of the ordinary. But what had happened is the shops were actually for that day getting cleared out because they were getting prepared for weeks, if not a couple months of being shut down. So we are now witnessing even more extreme measures on the third day of people barricading their restaurants, actually emptying out their stores, putting up notes everywhere. Like, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. It was such a surreal feeling from just this beautiful, peaceful holiday that everybody's preparing for to, like, within 3 days of this, like, we're shutting down. And we made friends with a lady who was right next to our homestead. She owns a restaurant. And what a sweet lady. And prior to us going into lockdown, you know, she was making sure, do you have food? Are you okay? And she's like, oh, and we're like, well, what about this coronavirus? Like, are you worried about it? And she was like, not worried about it.
No, she was putting on a brave face. She was also being very responsible and trying to make sure that the people in her employ had a place to work and had money still coming in. And we admired that, but we also knew that this just wasn't realistic. But she was, at least on day one, she was adamant that, like, this is what's going to happen.
And she was like, don't worry, when you come out, come for lunch, come for coffee. Well, we're like, okay, we'll see you in 24 hours. We'll come for some lunch. Couldn't make it day 2, obviously shut down day 3. And then we met up. She was putting plastic up and she's like, I got to take care of my employees, my health. And so it became real for everybody. So it's happening. We never got to enjoy a meal with coming, but maybe next year we come back and we come see you and have a nice dinner.
Yeah. I'll give you my WhatsApp, yeah?
Okay. Like within, again, 48 hours. And so while we're walking the streets on that day, just saying like, oh my God, thank God we bought those tickets. Oh my God. But we still can't relax because again, like what Trevor just finished saying, we don't know if we're gonna, like, we have to go to Jakarta. We still have to fly from Bali to Jakarta to Tokyo to Vancouver. We don't know what's gonna happen. Everything's going hour by hour. What will happen? And we couldn't relax until we were on the plane leaving Tokyo. We're so lucky we're getting out of here.
Yeah, and as
today.
a sort of a premonition to that, the night before, there was a really beautiful sunset that we got to watch, and sort of just, you know, we got to enjoy, you know, the beauty of Bali, and thinking, oh well, tomorrow we leave, and Linda took some really great video footage of that sunset. But in the background, there was this strange noise, almost like someone had a hose that they were spinning, and there was this kind of like hollow whistling kind of noise. So what you just heard was I guess kind of like a superstitious sound that supposedly comes from the temple that warns of an imminent disaster. And apparently it is reported that this sound was heard before the volcanic eruption and before the bombing, and I think it was an earthquake as well. So it's like a recorded premonition of impending disaster. We didn't know that at the time. We just thought, what a lovely sound. But now that in retrospect, it's really interesting that we caught that on tape while watching our last sunset over Bali. So the next day we returned our bikes. We had scooters rented until April 11th. This was, you know, a few days before we decided, the world's not shutting down. And we decided on a price, and the guy gave us a good price. We paid a bunch up front. 3 days later, we're like, we're out of here. So he was actually really good about giving us a chunk of our money back. We obviously didn't demand like a full refund or anything like that. And we gave him some more business because he was also a driver. We said, like, look, we'd love to give you more business then. Can you drive us to the airport? He was happy to. And on the way to the airport, Marina decided to pick his brain a little bit about the sentiment of the Balinese people right now, because it was really clear to me that they were clearly making a negotiation between their personal health and their financial well-being. And so just by giving us a ride to the airport, this guy was taking a chance. And so Marina asked him,
I don't know if you're allowed to be honest, but can you let us know how do your friends that you're associated with think about us tourists being here right now with the coronavirus? Like, and he's kind of like, oh, his eyes were looking at me in the rearview mirror, like wanting to say something, and I'm like,
he basically paused too long to make his answer clear.
I said, do they want us here, or do they want us to leave their country? And that's when he did a very long pause, and he kind of giggled, and then Trevor said to him, okay, you've answered her question. I said, you've answered. He's like, yes, and then he had he talked about, is like, it's not that we don't want the people here. We rely on tourism. We like the people here, but with would you word it? It's like misinformed. They're misinformed. It's like a new kind of racism where now a tourist is, blacklisted as the carriers. When, they had a bunch of people, like, it's coming from everywhere. It's coming from their own people who were coming back to Indonesia. It's not just like a white tourist that came into their country. So that misinformed fear that was in Sri Lanka, it's now, hey, it was in Vancouver, man. It's everywhere. It's no matter what country you are. It's misinformed fears. How do I word that? I'm not good at words.
It's race-based xenophobia and looking for a scapegoat to vent their fears and frustrations on. And so we got a very clear sense of that in Sri Lanka. Bali had a much more measured approach to that, I guess, in the sense that they knew that they depended on tourism, but at the same token they were fearful of tourists.
But they were so kind and respectful about it. They were like, oh yeah, even when we're at the airport and we're saying goodbye to our taxi driver, he wanted to like give us a handshake, and we're all like, no. He goes, oh yeah, that's right. And I'm like, virtual, like namaste.
No, not namaste.
No, that's the wrong one. It's terima kasih? Terima kasih.
Yeah, suksama. Terima kasih.
So once we're at the airport saying our goodbyes, that's when we're like, oh God, I wonder what kind of security checks we're going to go through. So upon even entering the airport, they had their masked man with the guns.
The temperature gun.
The temperature gun. Right. Safety first. Clear.
Don't be nervous.
Clear.
My turn.
Okay.
We're clear. Yay! Suksama.
There was new signage all over the airport that we hadn't seen upon arrival. And there was like tapings to like where you to like distance yourself. Signs everywhere on what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And even where you sat, all the seating area, which I love that they did this. They actually had
they taped X's on every second seat to indicate the physical distancing that was being encouraged. Mm-hmm. But all bets were off once you got on the airplane. I mean, you're still in a little metal tube with a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
So, we kept our physical distancing as long as we could, huddled into the plane, and flew to Jakarta.
What did we notice different at this airport? I personally loved it. Like, we get in, and again, we see all the taping, the signs, precautions. Everybody's like wrapped up, masks, plastics. But we actually got to go through. I don't want to make it sound like I was excited to go through, but they have these chemical spray.
It was basically a decontamination chamber that everybody walked through.
Right when you got off the plane to go into the airport, which I hate. Any other circumstances, if this virus wasn't even happening, I don't think there's any way in hell I would voluntarily go through this thing, but because of what is happening, and we're going into our second sardines in a can airplane, I was like, give it to me. I actually did 3 circles in it. Some people passed through once. I lifted my arms and I did 3 circles because I was like, just, if there's anything on me, get it!
Get it off.
Get it off! So that was neat to see that at the Jakarta airport, along with all the same seats were, wrapped up, taped off, social distancing. Then
we spent the night in Jakarta airport because we'd arrived really late. Our check-in was at 3 in the morning, and so we groggily got our way over to the check-in counter. We thought we were very clever. We went through the automatic kiosk and just went to the baggage delivery, and we got to the counter, and it seemed like it was taking a long time just to check our bags because the guy just kept on looking at it and then calling someone over, and then he called a second person over.
That's when Linda and I are looking at each other in the eyes, quietly going, what's this about?
And it occurred to me that like it's one of our paths is closing.
Something's happening.
So they called us over to the ticket counter rather than the check-in counter and explained to us that effective that morning, Japan had closed its borders to non-nationals. And even though Tokyo wasn't our end destination, we were going to have to do a self-transfer between airports. Now, Narita and Haneda airports are about 100 kilometers apart, and we'd arranged for a bus service to take us between the airports. But to do that, we were going to have to leave one airport and technically enter Japan. And they said if you enter Japan, you were going to have to go through a mandatory 14-day quarantine. And I said, there's no way we're going to quarantine ourselves in Japan for 14 days to get a flight home. What can you do for us? And then they suggested possibly flying us through the States. And we said, no, the Canadian-American border is closed right now.
And she's like, oh, really? We're like, yeah.
Yeah. And we were, very like hopeful and calm about it. And I like to think that's why she actually said, you know what, just give me a minute. And she went away for about 15, 20 minutes and came back and said, we've rebooked your tickets with another airline from Narita Airport. So you're going to be flying with us from Jakarta to Narita in Tokyo, and then with Air Canada from there on to Vancouver. And we were super grateful for that. And, thank you to All Nippon Airways. We love that airline. If you guys get a chance to fly with them, a standout thing for me was the bidet. They have a bidet in their airplanes.
Oh, and their tinted windows.
Oh yeah, no, they got windows that you don't just pull down a blind. You can actually control to what degree the window tints even.
And the service they gave us, such kindness.
Their
eyes had kindness, even though they were hidden under the mask.
Yeah.
So much kindness and
the Japanese have got hospitality down to a science.
Very, very comfortable, beautiful flight. Highly recommend them. Wow, yeah. That was a treat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really, gratitude to All Nippon Airlines. Highly recommend them. So they're the ones who got us home, and so we flew from. We were so grateful to check in and fly from there. The flight to Tokyo was not. It was so easy. But you'd never guess, actually, that there was practically a kindergarten class worth of children on that flight. They were quiet as church mice. It was crazy. I didn't even realize how many children were on that flight until they deplaned, and we just saw this parade of practically toddlers marching out. It was crazy. So once we arrived in Tokyo, we had a little bit of time to kill, and when you're in Japan, what do you do but get ramen? It was airport ramen, but it was still Japanese ramen.
Still really good.
You know what? Japanese airport ramen is as good as the best Vancouver ramen.
It was.
it was really good.
And the price was pretty decent too. It was only what? How much?
About $10-15 a bowl. So it didn't blow our socks off entirely. No. So we were grateful for that as well. I know that the yen is doing really well against the Canadian dollar, so we were able to actually eat in the airport. And thank God too, because our next flight was with Air Canada.
Ooh.
And I can't tell you.
Sorry, Air Canada.
What a difference there is between Japan's national airline and Canada's national airline. On the service on the All Nippon Airways flight was just fantastic compared to when we boarded the Air Canada flight and they were bringing out the meals. It was literally these cardboard boxes that they'd folded together, threw in some egg salad sandwiches and tuna fish sandwiches, and literally just threw it at you.
But that's the thing is we don't want to sound selfish here and be like the food was horrible as we're getting raced back to Canada to safety. We're just trying to say that, in this time with all the other airlines who were doing such a stellar job to be calm, respectful, kind under a stressful situation, why couldn't this airline do the same? And I mean, hey, I'm not trying to get criticism here. I get it. It's stressful. I couldn't do their job. I can only imagine what they're dealing with. But I'm just telling you, it's like night and day. And,
Well, everyone's dealing with
and-
the same thing, but Air Canada's response was bullshit. Plain and simple. This is just bullshit. There was a gentleman ahead of me who apparently had paid $4,500 per ticket for a family of 4 to get on this flight home in time. Was not impressed with this boxed sandwich that was like.
He asked the lady, he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, don't I get a choice food?" And they're like, oh, "That it's just how they act
The
towards."
attitude was terrible. She said, "No, this is what we're serving because of the coronavirus." And he was like, "No, I can't eat this." And she says, "Oh, you don't want it?" And snatched it away from him.
Oh, that's all we got. And she snapped it away from him, and he was just like jaw dropped of like, I can't even believe this just happened. And this is a 12-hour flight, and that's the first meal, and they've been in the airport for God knows how long. Maybe they didn't even buy airport food. Like, it's just, again, yes, it was a little bit of food, but it's just
It's what I was expecting, though. I mean, I've been on flights where they literally just throw the pretzels at you.
What's that, Linda? They had, and again, don't mean to sound ungrateful, but 12-hour flight, no coffee, no tea, no juice. Am I allowed to be like, every other airline that we've gone through this whole entire ordeal over the last few weeks, all still had that.
So,
disgusting.
The short version is, All Nippon Airways, 2 thumbs up.
Yay!
Air Canada?
Sorry.
No.
Sorry.
Not gonna cut it. But thank you for getting us home.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Maybe just rethink your customer service approach.
I mean, the tuna sandwich wasn't that bad. I ate the whole thing. I was starving.
It's a question of form versus function, really. Japan, All Nippon Airways, great balance. They got us there in comfort, style, and hospitality. Air Canada got us there.
Which is too bad because, this whole entire time I'm watching social media and their Instagram presence just makes me feel like they're full of love, caring, kindness, and I'm just like, oh, we're going to be taken care of. And then when we get on this flight, I'm like, where is this happiness I see on Instagram?
I think they're just riding on the Canadian brand. Like, Canadians are polite and hospitable.
That was disappointing.
But has little to do with the airline itself.
Yeah.
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah.
So we wind up landing in Vancouver, and we're very grateful to get back. But the weird thing was, there were none of the kind of protections or indicators that we had encountered at other airports. There was no decontamination chamber. There were no heat sensor cameras. There were no temperature guns. Just, maybe an elevated police presence. I'm not sure what that was for. And they asked us a couple times, do you feel sick? No? Have a great day. And boom, we were back in Canada.
I gotta admit, that was the fastest exit out of YVR I've ever experienced, so it was kind of beautiful. It was just like, zoom, 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 home, baby!
Linda has a comment on this, actually.
I don't have a bad comment. I'm trying to be funny. I'm just saying, I felt robbed coming home and being breezed through the YVR, the airport, when I thought I was coming home to chaos. Someone's going to swab me. I was actually crying because I thought that I was going to get a swab up my nose, and someone said it's painful. And then I thought we were going to be, like, questioned, temperature taking, sprayed down. Someone was going to follow us with, like, maybe some, like, batons or guns or something, and say, like, you can't take the SkyTrain, you're not allowed. And the guy was just like, are you sick? No. Peace out, see you later. Can we take the SkyTrain? Yeah, of course you can, just be smart about it.
Go straight home.
Complete opposite to what we have been told over the last week of, like, you get home, crazy, get home, panic, get that flight, it's crazy over here, lockdown. It was just so not what I thought I was coming home to. I'm grateful to be here, but there's just this weird online panic presence. I don't know.
There you have it, folks. Linda is not impressed with the apocalypse here. This apocalypse is bullshit.
Where are the zombies?
it was really a radical departure from what we'd heard and seen abroad in terms of like what's happening and how governments are dealing with it. You know, there's a lot more calm in Southeast Asia and more measures in place, and seemed to be a lot more panic here and fewer measures in place, which was just really odd.
You know what it is? There's no panic at the airport. There's no panic on the streets. There's just complete panic online.
Yeah.
That's where all the craziness is. And that's where we were getting our information from, was online presence. And it was just like, all the time. So when we were over there, all we imagined was it was like the purge over here in Canada or anywhere.
Yeah.
So we got on the SkyTrain. There were like 10 other people on the SkyTrain with us. And it's a bit of a reality check. You know, we got off at Cambie and Broadway at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday, and it was deserted. It was really strange. It was like the day after Christmas, kind of like just nothing going on. So the ride home was actually pretty low-key, you know, empty, if anything, just empty. And we got home and we were very happy to see our place again. It actually, you know, usually when we travel for this long, when we come back it feels like we've walked into another Airbnb or something, but it felt like home and we were glad to be here. And it was really great to see everybody coming by our window to wave hello and have all those deliveries. And now that we're here, we're on day 4 of our quarantine. We have already binge watched Tiger King.
Oh, so good.
So that's the update from our quarantine. Our story gets a lot less interesting from here on out for the next little while. We look forward to getting out of here. Please interact with us. We're dying for that. And we'll see you in the next update.
Bye.
Say goodbye, Linda.